Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John, Season 1, Episode 1. Coming up, we're focusing on a mid-Maryland monster, and that's not just alliteration. I'm Mike Duber.
I'm John Fitzpatrick.
And we're heading into the unknown, John.
Into the unknown.
Yeah.
And
so,
here we are.
Mid-Maryland monster. What do you have queued up for us today, John?
We're talking about the Sykesville Monster today.
Okay.
Which generally fits into the category of Bigfoot.
Okay, that was my first question when this first came.
What kind of
monster? Oh boy, that covers a lot of territory.
It could be anything. Yeah, and we'll get to the other stuff.
You know.
But Bigfoot's a pretty classic one.
Okay.
So let's start with Bigfoot.
Okay.
So this is a Bigfoot story set in a rural town in central Maryland,
where I live.
Yes, a town well known to us both. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think you passed the spot.
I did.
On the way here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
I passed right by it.
Right.
Crossed over the Patapsco, South Branch Patapsco. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
All the stuff.
All right. Well, I've got lots of questions.
All right.
I've got lots of comments.
Should we get started with the
let's
story?
Get started.
Should we let them all in on what's going on with this?
Well, Well, let us know. I mean, you were the one that kind of did the research on this. I know that I've looked around, but you've taken this and you have an idea of what really where the meat is on the bone. So
I think so.
Let's go ahead.
So
let us know.
If you hear a mention of the Sykesville Monster in the media, indeed, if you Google the term, you're going to likely pick up the story in 1981. And that was the year that Lon Strickler had a close encounter with the Sykesville Monster while fishing in the South Branch of the Patapsco River, about a mile southeast of the town of Sykesville.
Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, for me, I know exactly what it looks like. So we're painting a picture. This is it's a small town. And if you've been through Maryland, you may have gone through Ellicott City, another famous small town.
Also on the Patapsco.
Now it's on the Patapsco.
Yeah.
It's but the river is a little more accessible in Sykesville. The train cuts through. You can walk the tracks.
Very popular fishing spot.
Yeah. And that is what happens down there. So this is not, this is all normal.
It's a very normal place.
Fishing the Patapsco is a normal activity. And,
it's a very normal place. So maybe we should do Lon's report. So I'm going to read you Lon Strickler's report.
Okay, we're diving right in.
As it is found on the Bigfoot Research Organization website, or BFRO.net. Okay. And I lightly edited it for readability, but pretty much I cut and paste this. There was just a few things that were out of logical order the way it is on the screen, but this is all the information.
It's all good.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
Report number 231, Class A. Don't ask me what Class A is. I meant to look.
It.
I forgot.
Dang it. That was my first question.
I know. Maybe we'll go back and check that.
You see me waving?
I know. I forgot. I forgot to look.
How are we classifying these?
Stop. Okay. So, all right. Report number 231, Class A.
A is usually good.
Usually good.
Yeah.
Submitted by the witness on Wednesday, August 30th, 2000.
I have guilty knowledge about that.
Oh,
I'm sorry. All right, I'll let you read it. Because there was a question about
this is the straight up report. Man witnesses confrontation between Bigfoot and stray dog near Sykesville is the Pressy. Year 1981, season spring, date May 9th, 1981. Time and conditions, sunny, about 11 a.m. State of Maryland, county, Carroll County, nearest town, Sykesville, Maryland.
It's a mile away.
It's a couple miles away.
Go ahead. I was going to say, it's close.
It's close.
Yeah,
that'll
be important later.
Nearest road, River Road, and Route 32.
Right.
Here's the story, what was observed. And these are Lon's own words, so it's in his first person. In 1981, I was on the South Branch of the Patapsco River, approximately 1 mile downstream from Route 32. This section of river flattens out into riffles. I have no idea what riffles are.
Those are where the water is shallow and the stones are causing the little rivulets.
All right, thank you. All right, this section of river flattens out into riffles, then empties into a larger pool. I have fished this part of the river since I moved to Maryland from Pennsylvania in 1976. I was fishing on the north bank of the river and noticed a stray, large, mixed-breed dog showing a lot of interest on the south bank. This area has about a 100-foot open area before it becomes wooded. The dog suddenly started to bark and jumped at something that stood up in the brush near the river. This animal, the best terms I can describe, stood approximately 7 to 8 feet tall and had the shape of a slouching human. Full, dark, brown, matted hair covering the body. The creature was making a ticking sound, hard to describe.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments on the ticking?
Yeah.
Should I do the ticking?
Do it.
Okay.
But that's just supposition.
Okay.
Keep going.
Keep going. The dog lunged at it and quickly was slammed to the ground by the creature. By this time, I was wading across the shallow area of the river and caught a scent of this animal. Reminded me of a heavy musk smell, kind of like that of a fox. The dog...
fox poop. Is it? I don't think the fox actually smells. It's his poop.
Well, fox... I think he says fox urine in some other place, but let me keep going.
Yeah.
The dog ran away, and the creature started to walk into the woods. I tried to walk behind it, but I was in waders and lost sight of the creature. I did see the dog a bit later, and it had blood on its mouth and backside. I drove to a phone in Sykesville and called the police. I was told to return to the scene and wait. It took me about 3 minutes to get back, and a police cruiser, that is state police, was already there. I was immediately told to leave the area. I returned an hour later and noticed several state vehicles and one federal vehicle, as well as police. The area was taped off. I could see people combing the area. I was told once again to leave. I tried for several days to get answers from state officials, but never got an answer. I called WJZ, WBAL, and WMAR. Those I'm going to insert here. Those are the local television broadcast stations. About the incidents, and each seemed very interested. I contacted each station later and was told they had, quote, no idea, unquote, of an incident and did not want to talk to me. That's about it. I was very frustrated by this. I have reported this incident to only a few sources over the years. If you have any information, I would appreciate it. Lon Strickler. It goes on, just to be complete here, also noticed, I was told at the scene by a police officer that hair and other evidence was found. Other witnesses. One, myself. So I think he means there's only the one witness himself. Other stories. 1976. Sykesville. Well-documented encounter with a Bigfoot. Lots of property damage. It was told to me after this happened. Note, the witness to that incident has since deceased.
And we know that there are earlier encounters.
Yeah, we'll sort of get to them. But this, like I said, is the encounter that pops up first if you go on YouTube, Google. Lon, we should probably say a few words about Lon because he's got his own website, and you know why.
He's already involved in the paranormal. Is that what it is?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now the question is, was he before the encounter?
So I'm not sure 100%. One of the podcasts where I heard him tell his own story, and I'll note it was a consistent version with the BFRO.net account, says he said, I had already been engaged in investigating ghostly incidents. But this was what really tweaked his interest in cryptid encounters, is that he encountered Bigfoot himself. So let me take a look back here at my notes here. So Lon is a paranormal professional. Yeah. And possibly ran in the past tense.
Yeah, you mentioned
We'll get to that too.
Okay.
The website Phantoms and Monsters, and he's been blogging about the paranormal, cryptids in particular, since about 2005.
Yeah, since having this encounter, this has encouraged him to seek answers.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's
and he
that's
sounds
the
like
claim.
a seeker before with ghost investigations and so forth. I mean, in 81, I mean, this is well before the internet.
Yeah.
Right. People seeking ghosts. Well, I mean, I don't think it's a surprise, but I have to say, when I bring that up, it may sound like, oh, he was already into this. Of course, he's going to be seeing things and reporting on it. But I bring it up because, and we've talked about this before, where, is it the type of person that sees things? In other words, right, it's like he's witnessing a band of reality that others don't. And, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Right? Some people are going to see it, some aren't. He's one that is. So when people's like, well, it's pretty convenient for a guy that runs a paranormal site, right, to be seeing things, what's next?
His
right?
claim is he saw this thing before he started a paranormal website. Like I said, this apparently happened in 81. It was reported in 2000, and then the timeline is he started blogging in 2005.
Yeah.
And we should note that Phantoms and Monsters website was down this week, mysteriously.
Yeah.
We don't know what's up with that,
Yes.
but at least as of this recording, it was not operational.
It's the unknown working in our favor.
Yeah, I don't know. I did manage to use the Wayback Machine to double check his biography. He's a frequent guest on other podcasts, media. He was interviewed on Coast to Coast. He was interviewed on Destination America's Monsters and Mysteries in America television show. He's written 9 books, including Alien Disclosure, Experiencers, Expose Reality, Winged Cryptids, Humanoids, Monsters, and Anomalous Creatures Casebook, Mothman Dynasty. Why am I shilling for Lon? Mothman Dynasty, Chicago's Winged Humanoids.
He doesn't need the website.
I'm hoping he just doesn't sue us, because at one point I thought, well, I'll just pull he has his own version, his modern version of his encounter on his own website, a fuller version.
As he should.
Yeah, absolutely. And I started to pull that to read, thinking that would be fair use. And he's got an interesting discllaimer down at the bottom that says, please don't do that.
Oh, okay.
And, that's his right, but he can't tell me not to use the BFRO.net website.
Right.
So that's fine.
Yeah, we don't want to get on anybody's bad side.
No, and that's certainly not the intention. So if I can, plug his Meme Humanoids book, Modern Myths or Real Monsters, hopefully he'll give us a little grace.
Well, I have to say, it's like, wow, books and how my take on this, right? We all have bills. We all have, some of us have mortgages. Some of us, certainly rent or mortgage or whatever. We have bills to pay, and frankly, people should absolutely, cash in on what, on what their experiences are. And at the end of the day, I mean, frankly, we're podcasting about paranormal, right? It's like we're interested.
It's not like I can't blame them.
If we accumulate a bunch of knowledge because it's interesting and you're trying to seek out, what is the truth behind all this? What is there any there? And
it fuels the future investigation too. I mean, it's a vicious circle. What can you say?
Yeah.
And he's certainly done quite a lot to get modern stories about the paranormal out into the public and feed the never-ending hunger of the public ultimately. Right. So I mean, nobody's gonna fault him for that.
No, not at all. Well, and all the humming and hawing that I was doing during your reading of the BFRO.net.
BFRO.net.
Right. Make your claims there. Now, like the ticking sound, you interpret that as the teeth chattering, right? I don't know of any animal I know. What animal chatters its teeth like that? I'm not aware of any.
Unless it's cold.
Well, then it's a human.
Or sick. Right? I've chattered my teeth when I'm sick, yeah.
Yeah, well, what I'm getting at, though, is there are, aspects of other Bigfoot accounts that talk about mechanical sounds.
Yes.
Mechanical sounds. So, and he even says, this is hard to describe. So he's hearing something, he can't quite explain it. He's already seeing something fantastic, right? But again, you and frankly, in other anecdotes that we run across with the stories out of Sykesville and the area, there are strange, weird whirring sounds. One claim from one of the stories said it sounded like the howl of the animal or the creature or the monster was amplified, as if, going through a speaker.
None of these came from former astronaut Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man's encounter, did they? I just want to check. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to bring that
Oh
up.
my gosh. We're going back
Blast
in time.
from the past.
Going back in time.
Yeah. Andre the Giant. God rest his soul. Yeah.
So what are we to make of this guy, Lon, right?
Well, his story is consistent. Like I said, there were a few interesting additional details in his own version, but nothing out of whack. He went on to, we mentioned the fox urine. He did specify that later on, and he explained that was something he had encountered as a hunter, because clearly he's an outdoorsman, fishing and hunting.
Yeah.
To be used to kind of mask human scent. Also said that the waders had slowed him down, and that was why he was not able to keep up with the creature when it began to wander off.
Yep.
Sort of covered the gap in the story about what happened to the poor dog. Well, it was a stray dog, so he said I was reluctant to approach it, and probably that was the right thing to do. His story with the police gets a little more time involved. And teases it out a little more. He says that he did go home, and this was covered a little bit in the BFRO.net account. When he arrived the first time to meet the cop was already there and already beginning to barricade the street and close off the road, which we've talked about ourselves. That seems like they were ready for something. Like they showed up really quick.
Right. Were they already tracking it somehow? And they triangulated his call through dispatch over to an officer? Or was he just really handy? Like the minute he called, there was an officer so close, like, hey, go over to River Road. We've got another sighting. The other thing we don't know is behind the scenes, what are their SOPs when it comes to cryptids? Is there a leaked cryptid document SOP from the state police?
I'm not an expert on local law enforcement's SOPs in regards to cryptid encounters.
I'm honestly surprised by that.
I in my conversations with law enforcement officials over the years, I have asked, have you ever encountered anything weird? And they have, but they've never said they had an SOP, so I doubt there is much of one.
You opened a huge door there.
I did, but I don't
Law enforcement, weird events, anecdotes.
Well, weird is as weird does. They have a very high tolerance for the weird.
They do, because they need to keep their jobs. It's like pilots seeing UAP. Right? Don't report it.
It's not just that. They just see a lot of normal human behavior that's already
very strange,
freaking weird.
Yeah. But all right. I'll pin it. I'll keep my mouth shut because I would be curious to know what weird things they've seen that they probably, like I said, they don't report because they have to
It probably
stay
won't
sane.
scratch your itch.
Okay.
It probably won't.
I think it will. Okay. Anyway, but we can go into that later. I'm going to remind you. I think that's
sometime later.
That's
but nobody. The bottom line is nobody's ever told me they have a cryptid SOP.
Right. Well, the Air Force.
Well, that's different. Yeah. I mean, and the current DoD regulations are you're encouraged to report if you see something unusual in the sky.
Right. Well, in the sky, but I mean, and also the Bureau. It's not the Bureau of Land Management. Who manages the parks, the state parks?
Oh, the National Park
Interior Service.
Yeah, that's the Department of Interior.
Department of Interior. As I understand it, they classify it as the Bigfoot or Sasquatch as an animal that is to be protected. Isn't that in their literature somewhere? Or it was. And then it was removed and then added. I don't know. Or am I just repeating speculation?
No, you're not repeating speculation. I think the question is, how seriously can or should we take that? It has appeared in the past. When the United States Air Force conducts survival evasion, resistance, and escape training, or
SEER
school.
SEER trainers.
Yeah, they were known to. That takes place in Washington State in the rainforest area, not jungle, but like rainy forest. They were known to hand out literature saying, and all those little cards that are plastic coated on both sides. You fold it out and you say, okay, it's like, this is what you can eat, and then here's the stuff that can hurt you, and look out for these things. And supposedly on one of those handouts was Sasquatch, and of course, I in my mind, being kind of logical and mostly skeptical, in my mind, it's like, well, they hand it out in the classroom and everyone like nudges each other and points at the Bigfoot and gives a good chuckle, and then they're dropped into the wilderness, and 2 nights in they hear something and they're like,
oh shit,
what was that? Maybe they weren't kidding. But who knows that stuff does appear from time to time on government literature.
Someone questions it, like, is this honestly in your literature? And it's like,
yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
That's right.
But on the other hand, they're in there thinking, it's in there because we know it should be in there.
Well, the other one you get is we try to respect local native tribal custom and beliefs. And
that too. Well, I bet, and yeah. All right. Well, back to Lon. I've taken us far afield.
No, you didn't.
I will say, though, for the Department of Interior, if you see something and you're in the park, don't shoot at it.
You know what?
You better not be armed either, right?
So
I don't think you can take your firearms onto the state parks. I don't.
No,
think that's the case,
I don't think.
Right?
Not outside of hunting season and the restrictions involved.
In the areas that they allow.
There are some national parks where they are allowed, again, under certain specific circumstances. Like, I don't think they really want you going backcountry hiking in Yellowstone without the means to defend yourself against a grizzly. Usually bear spray, but I think some other things are allowed. Again,
I think a couple of quick Google searches could
help
us out there.
So there's another potential rabbit hole in future episode. In trying to find information for today, I did listen to a podcast that went deep down a rabbit hole with a guy who claimed to have seen a Bigfoot somewhere else, outside of Sykesville. And he said, I had my gun on me. And the person he was talking to said, that gun ain't going to do you no good.
Well,
it's never going to do you good. He said, no, it was a 12-gauge shotgun. That don't matter. So now there's like a half hour of them bantering back and forth about what kind of firearm, what caliber would do it. And I'm sitting there going, this is ridiculous. Sure, it's a 900-pound humanoid, but people hunt elephant. I'm not saying that's right, but we've got firearms that are big enough to take these things down.
Well,
if it's
actually, exists and is manifested in this reality.
Paws and pelts, yes,
right? As a paws and blood and claw, tooth and claw.
But right? That did prompt me to have a conversation with a friend of mine who has hunted big game in North America, not especially successfully because he hasn't taken one yet, but he was prepared, and he did go with some friends of his who were successful. And the conversation was, what would you use to hunt a paws and pelts Bigfoot? And that got interesting. So I'm thinking that might be a whole episode we do, is bring poor Troy in.
I suppose.
Sit and go, so how big a caliber would you need? Because I don't think you need like one of those 50 caliber sniper rifles to deal with a 900-pound humanoid. Now, the ethics of the situation are completely different.
Yeah.
But that's a topic for another time.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a couple of...
And there are ethics involved.
A couple of feet adjacent to us.
Ethics, folks. Don't go shooting anything
don't shoot
you haven't positively identified. All right, where were we?
I think we had just completed our... look at Lon's history of publishing and his webpage.
Do you want to talk about the sketch he commissioned from a police artist?
Sure.
Okay, so we may be skipping over something. Well, let's go down the rabbit hole with the police sketch. So a few years later, he decided that he really needed to get some visual confirmation on this. So he was put in touch with a police artist, I believe out of Florida, and gave the man a description of what he saw, and he got a sketch back, and the guy said, "Is this what you think you saw?" Because I don't know that the guy was told who Lon was or what Lon was describing. The result can be Googled. If you do a Google image search for Sykesville Monster, this is a prominent thing that pops up. I don't know if we're doing show notes yet, but we can certainly get a copy and put it in show notes. Regardless.
Yeah.
It's very
almost
common.
certainly be show notes where you can
so
find a link.
The result looks like a primitive hominid, such as a Neanderthal or a Cro-Magnon type, brow, thick and heavy, squat nose, lots more hair than you would expect, scraggly hair on the top, hair around the sides, down the chin.
And the picture that you're saying pops up, in most searches. I ran across a site that said, actually it was in Reddit. Someone had done potentially had AI go and search, and there was a match with another license. Oh, I shouldn't say license, but a known image. So maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe I haven't seen the sketch, is what I haven't seen. That's what I'm saying. But because you said he had a police sketch done. Right?
Yeah, it's a sketch,
and it's okay,
and it looks like a primitive humanoid. Yeah.
Okay, well,
it does not look ape-like, or it looks less ape-like than it looks human, but it does. It is definitely a missing link type situation, in terms of the way it looks.
Okay.
So he had that done. What I skipped over that I think is worth mentioning is on Lon's site, Phantoms and Monsters, he does provide some corroborating accounts to his story. Like, he says he got an email a few years ago from somebody who claims to have been a police officer on the scene. And I'm reluctant to, again, because he had that really convoluted disclaimer at the bottom about fair use and whatnot. I'm reluctant to read the whole thing, but to paraphrase him, the officer who goes unidentified, and we do not see any evidence of the mail or email that he got, says that he was on the scene that day, that he was local. The feds came in and pushed them all around. The feds were much better equipped. They had all kinds of trucks. They had tents. They had helicopters that were flying overhead. And he said, I'm here to back up your story. The other story that Lon tells is from a man named Phil, who later on in the 80s claims to have stumbled across a mysterious set of bones and reddish-brown fur while fishing in Piney Run, which is, I think, another tributary of the Patapsco, and near Marriottsville, Maryland, which is not too far away. I've been by that spot, too. In fact, I think I've been by this particular spot more often than I've been by the South Branch Patapsco. Again, to paraphrase, he says these bones appeared to be human, but were too large to be human.
Okay.
He also reported lack of evidence in that he said there was no evidence of clothing nearby, which you might expect if somebody just died in the woods or were buried in the woods.
Well, what became of these bones? Do we know anything about
he says they were reported to the authorities. The authorities
they went.
Swooped in, and that was the last anyone ever heard of them.
A lot of big history of giant bones going missing in this country. Did they call the Smithsonian?
Probably another episode somewhere along the way. Yes. And now,
what's up with those museum people?
Who knows with that one? Again, we just have the name Phil.
Yeah.
I do want to note that Lon Strickler is still very much alive. Still appears on various media sources to tell his story.
Yeah. Good.
He tells a good story. I would recommend listening to him.
I will have to listen to one of his. I tried to avoid it a little bit. I knew we were doing this, and I thought, well, I don't want to color my opinion of it too much before I talk about it. I knew you were doing the research, so I would just sort of be observational. But Yeah, I think I'll take in an account of his and see what if that changes what I think.
He like I said, he tells a good story and it's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
About the only thing that appeared in his verbal stories that didn't appear in the written accounts is my favorite bit. The monster was visibly male. And that's a whole thing in the Bigfoot genre. Bigfoot junk. So it's just interesting that it comes up.
Oddly enough, that's something that I have not run across, at least in the where I get my stories and listen to.
Oh, maybe it's just me.
Well, maybe I'm blocking it out.
I mean, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing. And you can kind of tell that you've gone too far down the Bigfoot rabbit hole when you run into it. What do you want?
One thing or another.
The other interesting thing I would note, and you brought this up, was the timing. In one of his appearances on a podcast, he said he made the initial report to BFRO in 1995. But you'll recall, you can go back and check me, I said the BFRO.net report online is dated 2000.
Right.
So there's some discrepancy there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how much would be there, but it's worth looking into.
One last bit before we wrap up Lon. There are no official police records about any of this.
Well,
people have looked. I'm taking them at their face value. But
sure.
He's looked. He says he's got nothing.
Right.
Other folks have looked. Nothing. And no news stories.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, it just lends itself to the mystery, and it leaves the full effect of the mystery there, right? Is it a cover-up? What did he actually see? Were they already tracking this thing? And if so, how? There's just a lot of the typical questions in this story. I think this story also ticks off a lot, pun intended, ticking sound.
Tick, tick, tick.
It ticks off a lot of the pretty standard observations. I mean, as it exists in 1981, there were a lot of Bigfoot stories floating around, but it's not like today where you can go on the internet and read, I mean, literally thousands of reports and concoct one very easily. It has a couple of the features, and boy, people, why don't you believe me? I'm ticking off all the boxes. But for this guy to come forward with this, to me, and again, I'm maybe showing my hand with some of this stuff. I think people are seeing something. I always have. That's not entirely true. I mean, I think there was a time when I wondered about it, but didn't think too much about it. But then one day you just say, where do these stories come from? This and everything else, right? That sit on the fringe of society, right? These stories that get passed around, and how much there is there.
Yeah, well, for me, it's what's interesting is the way Lon's story takes that turn midway through. If he had the entirety of his story was, I saw a Bigfoot. Here's what I saw. I would say he saw something, and we could tick down the list of potential things, natural things he saw. We can tick down the list of, well, what kind of Bigfoot is it? Is it paws and pelts? Is it supernatural? Is it an alien encounter? Who knows? There are a lot of theories on that side too. It's when it turns conspiratorial that I get a little flummoxed about how to take it, because the time period that he's talking about, reporting it rather than seeing it. First of all, there is that long discrepancy of time before he reports it. And some of that might just simply be he didn't know where to report it. I accept that. But that 95 to 2000 time frame, he's basically describing an X-Files episode. And that is the period in which X-Files is the most popular. So if I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I want to make sure my story is heard for whatever reason, whether it happened or it didn't, I just want to get out there. That's how do I get to the forefront? Well, I grab the zeitgeist by the geist, and I hit it right hard, and it just seems too coincidental to me, I'm afraid. I'm not saying it didn't happen.
It's coincidental with lots of other things that in other words, I mean, that was also the era when, the popular internet was on the rise. I mean, it was exponentially taking off by that point, 95 through 2000.
True. It also screamed
It
when
could
we
have
got
been-
on
I
to
mean,
remind us about the existential terror of the internet, but which we don't have anymore.
Right. Well, yeah, I agree. Right, the X-Files was there, but it's chicken and egg, right?
Right.
This is just something that someone decided to make a movie about what was already in everybody's minds. There's this underground. It wasn't like
Fair.
it wasn't that that show created conspiracy.
Oh, no.
Conspiracy has been
fact-
around along with the oldest profession in the world, right? It's been around perhaps longer.
True. And the creator of the X-Files, Chris Carter, is notorious for remixing other people's things that were already out there. The conspiracy was not, I mean, in a sense, it's his own idea, but the themes he pulled, the details he pulled, already existed out.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Lon and I see, here comes the X-Files and Duchovny is voicing all of these things, I think that Lon and everybody else that's ever been interested in this stuff, if I said, well, they finally made a show about what we've been saying all along.
And there's, I think we'll find, especially as we go forward in this experiment, that there is a link between pop culture and true stories of the paranormal where they share back and forth, and there is a question of what comes first, that chicken egg that you mentioned.
Yeah, well, popular culture,
they feed each other.
Well, in popular culture, as I said before, and I point out because it's the thing that the skeptic, you're my resident skeptic is going
I am
to say,
more skeptical, yes.
And I bring it up because, the idea that we have bills to pay and someone is inventing stories in order to cash in, right, on my story. But I don't think people are not making fortunes off of this.
No.
And I have no idea whether Lon is or not.
Lon is going to be the first to tell you he's not making a lot of money on his books, and most of them are self-published on Amazon.
Sure, and
that's fine.
And I wish he did. I wish anybody the best.
Right.
That's trying to get by, and we all need resources. But I don't think that somebody that writes a book about their experience or is trying to sell the information that they've put together in a book makes them wrong or makes them suspect.
Doesn't make them wrong.
One day I'll tell the story of because I was a massive skeptic on lots of things, and until I wasn't, until I, we can get into that later, but
I'm sure it'll come out over time.
it will. You'll learn about it over
So
time.
shall we bid farewell to Lon and move on to the 73 flap?
We can do that. I think we're probably going to point back to him.
Yes. So
Later, right, and other things.
I don't think the two are divorced from each other, and I don't mean that just that Lon heard about the 73 incidents and started his story. I think it would be just as fair to say, hey, are there elements of Lon's story that might trace back to these things organically? So clearly, Lon Strickler is not the first person to see a Bigfoot-like creature in the Sykesville area. Mm-hmm. In fact, in 1944, there's a very brief story about a local fisherman on the South Branch of the Patapsco sighting a massive hairy creature over 7 feet tall. And that's about all there is. So it sounds
2 data points.
Yeah, well, it does sound too neat in some ways. It also sounds like, if the kind of thing that if you hang out down there long enough, maybe you just run into
It's where it crosses the river.
Bigfoot doing.
It just happens
doing
to be
Bigfoot
where
things.
there's lots of fish. Well,
Right.
Maybe
And
Bigfoot's
water.
fishing there.
And water. Maybe you just got thirsty.
Well,
Everybody shows up to the river
There's more
eventually.
than one way to explain things. Yeah.
Okay, so there are a number of retellings. I pulled them from a number of sources. One of the best, though, I found a video from a guy named Dan Bell. He runs Film It Video on YouTube. Basically, I got a 2-for-1 deal because I like out of this, and I really like that. He's got these interesting little videos of him out in places. So he went to the spots in Sykesville, and then he was reading verbatim from a very difficult book to get, which is Mark Opsasnick's Maryland Bigfoot Digest. Yep. I have my feelers out trying to get this book. Couldn't find it, so this was the next best thing. So there's this video of poor Dan out at 2 a.m. in Sykesville at these locations, scaring himself silly reading these stories. It's a great video, and it's about 20 minutes long. So another one I would recommend. The most famous witness sightings date from 1973. The Sykesville Herald, which was the local newspaper, published the story on the 31st of May in 1973 about a police call on the 29th of May. The reporter, this goes to show how small a town it is. The reporter for the story was Donna Herbert, who was the wife of the Sykesville police chief, Omar Herbert.
Okay. Well, yeah, it was pretty rural out here.
But
it's built up now, but if you drive back in the day, 30 miles out from Fort Meade, it was rural. It was rural.
It was small. And, there's a lot to unpack there. So I know from knowing some journalists and newspapermen that they always love to tell a good story. So I can see Donna Herbert saying, I don't care if this is true or not. It's a great story. I'm gonna write it up and publish it. But at the same time, she's the wife of the police chief. So does she want to embarrass her husband? Does she want to protect her husband? Is her husband of his own opinion about whether or not this story should be told? Let's tell the story, though. All right, let's just move on from there, and we can sort of circle back to the police involvement. Okay, so on the night of the 29th of May, 1973, Anthony Dorsey, about 19 years old, walked outside because his dog was causing something of a commotion. His own shouts and yells broke up a fight between his dog and, quote, something.
Okay.
Dorsey took the dog back inside. He armed himself with a flashlight and a rifle before going back outside to see what's there and what's bothering his animal. Stumbled around in the woods, which were apparently not too far away from the house at the time. If you watch the video, though, Dan's like, oh, the woods are way back there now, and there's this other house in the way. So things have changed. But Dorsey's now armed with a flashlight and rifle, goes back out into the woods. He hears a crashing sound, and then he swung his flashlight around and onto a figure, apparently hidden behind some of the foliage. It's the only way I can imagine this, because he says all he saw were, quote, two huge eyes that reflected red in his flashlight, and they were about 7 feet off the ground. So after this encounter with the unknown, and I'm sure some choice words, at least to himself, he went back inside and called the police.
Okay.
Officer Charles Rupp arrives, and he tried to get Dorsey to take him back into the woods to, quote, check it out.
Right.
Which I'm sure is exactly what
that's right. Yeah,
dude, I called you.
Yeah. Go check it out.
Yeah. And apparently there was a plan here. You go into the woods and flush it out, and I'll be here. And blah, blah. Dorsey refused. Of course he did. The cop did go into the woods, and there was some more commotion. And then Officer Rupp shouted out towards Dorsey, "It's coming towards you." Apparently nothing was seen, though.
Okay.
So they sort of ended their evening. The next day, the police returned. This time it was Chief Herbert. And they looked around, and supposedly they found at least 3 5-toed footprints showing a 6-foot stride. Okay. I mentioned that Mr. Dorsey was 19 at the time. He was a volunteer firefighter. So he's, if you're looking for, credibility, people like to point at cops and firefighters.
Sure. Yeah, we got to throw the credibility out there.
As Lon noted back in his account, the witness is deceased. This witness has deceased. Mr. Dorsey passed away in September of 2017. Yeah. You can find an obituary on there on the internet if you search far enough, which I did. And there is a mention of the fact that he worked as a career firefighter in several departments around the state the rest of his life. and he never changed his tale about seeing the Sykesville Monster.
Yeah.
Although that was down in somebody's comments rather than the actual obituary.
Sure.
So that was Mr. Dorsey's encounter.
Yeah, there's the Dorsey family. There's lots of Dorseys around Carroll County, Sykesville, for sure. Interesting story. I was remarking on your observation that obviously it must have been hiding behind the leaves or the foliage because the light got shined on it and only the eyes were there. But I mean there are many stories that indicate that this thing is shifting in and out of reality. But it's interesting how people what they observe and what they report, and then the interpretations. So there's a lot of room in there.
Yeah, this story he's never. I haven't seen any version of this story that indicates he clearly saw an 8 foot tall humanoid.
Yeah.
With hair and just was able to say it would look like Bigfoot. No,
but it's strange.
It is strange. He certainly had the impression of, the footprints show up the next day. The footprints also fit that weird pattern you're kind of describing, in that you'd expect to find a trail of these things and of some sort if you're going to find any. And they only found 3, but that's not all that unusual that you kind of find a midway of a trail. They sort of mysteriously begin, they mysteriously end.
Yeah, that's part of the stories too.
Right. And maybe this would have been forgotten to history, except that a few days later, somebody did see a large, hairy humanoid, and maybe that's why it goes on. So on the 3rd of June, 1973, 15-year-old Elston Howard Gassaway, better known as Howdy, not Captain Howdy, better known as Howdy.
You read my mind.
Yeah, look, that's a.
Were they on?
That's a different episode.
So Sasquatch and I were on the Ouija board.
That's a different episode.
We were calling in Pat.
Yeah. Howdy looked outside his window on Schoolhouse Road and thought he saw a figure moving through the brush in his backyard. Again, the woods have been cut back, but his property is partially wooded. So Howdy went outside to search the property, which also, in addition to being heavily wooded, bordered on the Patapsco. And he was about to go back inside when he saw a large ape-like creature begin to rattle the neighbor's cellar doors. The creature appeared to notice Howdy and then darted back into the woods. Howdy went back inside and was understandably a little bit agitated and continued to be vigilant through the evening. And it was good that he was, because apparently the creature returned about 10:30 p.m. And Howdy spotted the head of the creature popping up over a hedge of some sort.
Hedges.
Some sort. So he alerted his mother, Bessie Gassaway, who had a friend over visiting, Diane Coleman. And the 3 of them had a very clear look at the creature before it disappeared into the woods. Okay. They claimed the creature was an ape-like beast, interestingly enough, with grayish-white hair. And this encounter was also noted in the Sykesville Herald in an article published on 7 June, also by Donna Herbert.
There she is again.
Yep. Well, it's a very small town.
Well, right, but she's not real worried about embarrassing the husband.
Yep. Embarrassing the town, herself, or her husband. That's correct.
But she's selling newspapers.
She's selling newspapers.
She loves to tell a story, so she'll cook up any...
No, I am not saying that.
It's Freudian slip. She will cook up any story.
I am definitely not saying that. What I said before was, any good newspaper person is going to tell you, if I've got a story like that, it's getting printed. It's going to get told.
Sure.
And that's why so many of them sort of come off, especially these days, as being a little tongue-in-cheek. They want to get the story out there, but they also don't want to ruin their credibility. Ultimately, the story is...
I can't tell it in such a way that I believe it, or I'm presenting it as fact.
Which is kind of a shame.
Interesting town denizen Joey Cabasio saw another ape-like creature rattling around in people's backyards.
If you've got 2 witnesses, 2 separate encounters. In this case, you've actually got 4 witnesses in 2 separate encounters. Yeah. Now it's a story. Now it's a legit news story. Not so much that there is Bigfoot in town per se, as we have people encountering something weird going on. And the police are actually showing up and investigating and taking these people semi-seriously, that something has happened. And that's the story. That's the way it should be told. I should note the article also noted the police conducted a 6-hour search of the woods. So clearly the police believe something was amiss, and she had the access to know how long the police searched.
So these are stories that these last 2 are, you've got the Dorseys involved, and you've got folks on Schoolhouse Road. This is just the people that live just right from downtown. They're up on that hill that's to the west of town.
Yeah.
These are, so they're all there, right? These are utterly local folks, right?
Well, yes, and very local. That's another. There's an interesting demographic thing here, and I'm not quite sure that either of us are particularly well equipped to deal with it in depth, but it's worth noting. So, in addition to the Sykesville Herald, the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper picked up the story because this is a historically black neighborhood of Sykesville.
Right.
Sykesville itself,
Schoolhouse Road still has an old schoolhouse there that
was the one-room schoolhouse for black children, for African Americans in the early part of the 20th century.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And in fact, I think in the video, Dan Bell visits this. He doesn't know what he's looking at per se, because it looks a little bit like a church. But he's on Schoolhouse Road. He visits the site of the historical marker and moves on. I think he sees a police officer sleeping in his car at 3 a.m. But that's all. So go back and check the video yourself. What's interesting about this is that, generally speaking, broad brushstrokes here, and this is why I'm saying I'm not sure I'm really well equipped to deal with all the implications of it. Bigfoot's not really a big deal in the African American community.
It's not a big deal. What do you mean not a big deal? They don't, it just doesn't come up, or they don't
I mean,
believe,
if you turn on a Bigfoot squatching show, you may find an African American or 2, but they're predominantly not there. They're not represented. They're sort of underrepresented in the community if you go to conventions.
Okay.
And I've seen that brought up elsewhere. Again, I'm noting it. So, but because to me, I mean, that's certainly
so you're dialing in that. Well, hang on. The Baltimore Afro-American paper picked this up, ran with the story, so it must have been significant
to them at the time.
Well, just significant, a news story, and caused a stir.
Well,
big enough that it's like, wow, there's really something happening. 4 folks, really are.
Well, what I'm also getting at
giving witness to this
is that these aren't necessarily folks who are predisposed to be interested in Bigfoot. So what are they seeing? Why are they reporting it this way? Does that give it more credibility in a way, I guess? Because I don't know. I think somebody else needs to pick up that thread and really
that's an interesting note. To me, it just strikes of that this was significant. And, to your point, if this is normally something that's not run or of interest or is acknowledged, now, frankly, I would say maybe the idea is that if you're, just understanding the history of the African American in our culture, right? Do you want to draw that kind of attention to yourself?
Right. Again, that goes.
I have enough to worry about. I don't need to call the cops and say I've got like a 7-8 foot creature covered in black fur running around my yard. That's not going to go well for me. Nor do I really want police at my house. That's basically my understanding. Although I think you're right. I think someone should pick up that thread.
Something else is of interest there, and I think that's curious. Now, again, we're sort of going with America 2025 attitudes. We got to remember this was 1973. Things may have been a bit different in some ways, rougher in some, but there was more Bigfoot interest generally. The classic image from the Patterson-Gimlin film. The Gimlin film had been recorded not that long ago. It was 1967. It started to make the rounds and
Right.
be publicized in 1968. It was beginning to appear on television in the early 1970s. There's a movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek, which is a docudrama about another Bigfoot-type monster called the Folk Monster in Arkansas that had been released in 1972. We're beginning to see a number of books being published at this point. Lots of the beginning of paranormal television was happening back then. So it may simply be that attitudes were more pervasive at the time and it hadn't fallen out into being something that wouldn't be of interest to the African American community. It hadn't segregated itself for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
Sociologically
Bigfoot's not
speaking.
going to be thinking that way.
Right.
Like this is where I'm moving through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you assume
it's not taking a survey of the
yeah,
neighborhood.
if you assume that Bigfoot exists, yes, Bigfoot doesn't care.
Yeah. Well,
he is the ultimate. I just don't care.
interestingly, when I was looking over, what I was looking, reading the stories and did some of my searches, I found more interest down in the comments.
Yeah.
The
the comments are always
I
good.
found a lot of interesting comments from people that were coming forward and saying, hey, I remember this story. I grew up in Sykesville, and I grew up on this road. And you have a lot of folks coming forward and saying, yeah, I mean, we would, as kids, we would joke about Bigfoot during the day. He said, but one commenter was like, but at night, we went inside because there was a real fear. And what a lot of the commenters said, I heard many a strange howl that was not, the animals of the woods, right? It wasn't a fox, which can sound really creepy if you've never heard a fox. If you're a city person and you go to the sticks and you hear a fox, you could get freaked out unless you know what you're listening to. Coyotes, whatever. People know the difference. If you, like Lon, if we will go back to Lon and we say, oh, well, was he a firefighter? Was he an airline pilot? Was he a congressman that gives him some credibility? Like,
Right.
he's not going to lie. Well, Lon was a hunter, apparently. And frankly, rural hunters know their animals. They know their sounds. And so I just pick on that because a lot of the skeptics like to come forward and say, well, what he saw was a black bear. And that's a famous refrain for the folks that, they have these sightings and they say, well, what they're looking at is a black bear. And I just, could it have been a black bear? Sure, it could have been. If you glimpse the thing and it's a dark shadow and is running off into the woods, right? If you get the briefest of glimpses, but a long enough glimpse, most people that have grown up around these animals can know it's like, it was not a bear, If you dressed me all in black and you put me 100 yards into the wood line and you had me just scramble up the leaf covered.
We should try that.
We should try it. I tell you, I'm not going to look like a bear.
Okay.
I'm not going to look like a bear. I don't know. I just find
Maybe
some of
we'll
these...
run that experiment.
Well, and did you run across? Did you run across the with the Springfield Hospital Center?
Yes.
We run across the old refrain of, oh, there's some escaped lunatic off his meds is running around. He just grabbed a big monkey suit, threw it on, and started rampaging through Sykesville. It's ridiculous.
That there is a state-run mental health hospital near Route 32, just on the other side of 32 from Sykesville, Old Town Sykesville. And yes, that does come up quite frequently as a potential explanation, is that it is somebody who has wandered off. It's not a high security hospital. These are not dangerous people. They are not guarded 24/7.
Yeah.
They're not chained to their beds.
Easy to say that.
This is the kind of place where people check themselves in. They can check themselves out. But yeah, by the same token, they do have some issues, and some of those issues might be authority driven. Some of them might be antisocial. Some of them might find them
needless to say,
out in the woods,
there is a
wandering around.
Big difference between
Yes.
the average 6 foot tall, 5.5 foot tall person who is effectively naked,
Yeah.
right, in probably clothing,
Yeah.
and an 8 foot tall ape-like creature with huge male genitalia, John, don't you know?
Well, that also might explain
Well,
why you can make that out. That's all other story.
And to be fair, wasn't the Patterson-Gimlin creature as witnessed female?
Visibly female.
Right. The supposition is that you could see the breasts in that case.
And the frequent description is pendulous breasts.
Pendulous breasts.
There's some interesting criticisms about all of that too. Couple of last tidbits about the 73 sightings. So the Baltimore Afro-American also reported on 9 June 1973 an out-of-state truck driver who requested anonymity passing through Sykesville, spotting the monster, and he described the monster as 7 to 8 feet tall, reddish brown hair, and caked in mud.
Yeah, walking like he was on stilts.
Yeah, and again, consistent with most, if not all, of the other descriptions. Howdy's description being the grayish white hair, but
it was an evening sighting, wasn't it?
Yes,
it could have been by moonlight, and like the what is it? The yellowish light of the moon could have caused a different look to the fur potentially, right? Well, and people would say, well, what's this? A new creature? Now this one's grayish white.
Yeah. So
anyway,
okay.
I find those little details
interesting.
Those
little details are interesting, especially where they are consistent. And then when they're not consistent, that also sort of like, well, okay, what did they see? And, witness sightings are notoriously inconsistent. Witness sightings are notoriously inaccurate. So you're right. It could just be, they tend to be.
I don't. Are they though? Yeah. Are they?
There's some interesting studies on that, but I don't necessarily have the scientific studies queued up in here.
I think that there are definitely, but when you look across all of the Bigfoot anecdotal stories, there are threads that go through most of them. You could have your outliers, and somebody that is truly just trying to get attention and has fabricated a story.
And these are definitely in that vein, and they are consistent not only internally to themselves, but with other
nationwide,
stories.
Worldwide.
Even the grayish white hair isn't inconsistent with other sightings.
No, it's not. Well, and right, exactly.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that some of the, like, for example, it's the Springfield Hospital resident. That's the statement, or the black bear one, the explanation. This is the story of the explanation coming from somebody that just doesn't bother to look any further than a news headline written by Donna
Herbert. Funny you mentioned that, because I think that's going to come up soon. It's sort of the opposite. So one last thing about the 73 sightings before we sort of delve into what might be going on in Maryland. The documentary that Lon Strickler appeared on, Monsters and Mysteries in America, they tried to tie the 73 sightings with Hurricane Agnes, which occurred in...
So Sasquatch was blown in on a hurricane? Was it like Sharknado?
Yeah, it was so weird.
Sorry.
So Hurricane Agnes is a forgive me, high watermark in weather history of Maryland. It occurred in June of 72. Mm-hmm. Anyone who grew up in the 70s, 80s remembers hearing stories about Hurricane Agnes. Mm-hmm. And apparently the known tie to Sykesville is that the storm did wash away the local bridge over the Patapsco. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure what they were trying to get at with that.
Who wrote that? The documentary?
Yeah, the Destination America Discovery Channel group.
That might be worth watching just for its absurdity.
Monsters in America.
Yeah.
Well, it's available online. You can see it. They have stock images, not images of the actual bridge, but stock images of a bridge washing away. And they try to point out that there were a handful of reports in 72, starting in September, and then it culminates in the Dorsey and Gasaway sightings in 73, and the truck driver.
So what
I
they're
don't
saying
see the
is
connection.
downstream, he didn't see a hairy man.
Yeah.
He saw a concrete pylon.
No, I think they were trying to say that somehow the hurricane did flush Bigfoot out of his hiding spot.
All right.
Wake him up or something.
I
don't know.
It caused a stir.
It just was odd.
Yeah, that's
just so odd. But yeah.
Well, that's a television show that has nothing to reach for. Right? There's so much else to talk about.
Yeah.
If you are just looking at the top layer of this, it's going to sound absurd. But I'll tell you again, when you take the time to sort of look into this stuff, you start to see it a little differently. I thought it was interesting that you said the missing, like the footprints like appear and then they disappear, and they were only able to catch 5.
Right.
Especially in an area, if it's like, well, wait a minute, this is a whole muddy field and we only caught 5. But we should see them entering, we should see them leaving. I think it's interesting because I'd like to put a pin in another episode, maybe do some of those. Was it Paul Paulides does the missing stories?
Missing 411.
It has the same flavor, right? A frozen lake, it's covered in snow, and you've got the footprints walking out into it, and then it just disappear.
There's a couple of incidents like that.
And
so George Paulides,
interesting similarities.
Well, there's a reason for the similarities in that he started his post law enforcement career as a Bigfoot investigator.
Oh,
and then he moved into the missing
411. Really liked X-Files.
Well, maybe, but what's of interest to me is that he started out as a hobbyist, semi-professional, however you want to put it, looking into Bigfoot investigations. Started to put together the missing 411 dossier material for himself, and moved away. Like some people try to connect the two, saying he's hinting that the missing 411 folks are being snatched by Bigfoot, but he doesn't. That's
not what I got at all.
He's not saying that. No.
His first, the first taste I got it was strictly just, these are amazing stories of people going missing, and the weird stories associated with it. He didn't offer an explanation.
He doesn't.
The second show he had tied it more to alien phenomena.
But again, it's more like people are coming in and imposing their view on him when he doesn't do that. So they've imposed Bigfoot, they've imposed aliens. Mm-hmm. There's a whole, we're going to impose serial killers onto this. Then there's satanic cults. It's almost like missing 411 becomes a Rorschach test for people and how they view it. Yeah. But I just you mentioned the similarities, and that I don't think is completely.
That's interesting. I didn't know that he was previous. My understanding was he was law enforcement and had gotten onto many cases looking for people just by maybe where he was from. You get out into Colorado and people go missing, like hikers disappear. Well, we got to go find them.
He's a trained law enforcement investigator, detective. Right.
Well, that's what I read from him.
Yeah, that's what he did for a career. Yeah.
But to me, these phenomena exist in the same places. This is vast wildernesses. Yeah. People venture out there. They get lost. But we'll put a pin in it. Yeah, I think like the missing persons numbers from Alaska have some interesting details that people point to all the time that I've always found fascinating. I don't think just people wandering off explain them all.
I don't want to go down this.
Yeah, well, I know. But I think we're starting to expand out the tendrils of interest. So something to come back to.
Sure.
So what's going on?
What is going on?
What's going on?
Well, there are a couple of different directions this could go. So let me throw out a couple of tidbits, some stuff for you to chew on, or maybe just have the audience think, both of them, think about. So I found a lecture online from the Enoch Pratt Free Library. They gave it, I think, during COVID, Halloween. It's called Unveiling Maryland's Monsters, Legendary Cryptids from the Free State. And according to them, they had a couple of interesting things to say. According to them, there's an image on a map of the colony by George Alsop, dating back to 1666 or 1666. No, coincidence only. So George Alsop drew up the map, and
there are no coincidences.
Yeah, they say the image shows a wild man.
Mm-hmm.
But then they showed the image on screen of the actual map, and it's an upright biped. It's clearly hairy. It looks like it's got a pronounced snout.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks like an upright bear. If I had to call it a cryptid, I probably wouldn't call it Bigfoot. I would probably call it a werewolf or dogman type entity. If I had to call it a cryptid. If I had to call it a cryptid,
you had to choose a cryptid.
Yeah, and I would choose that more so because there is something in the Appalachian region of Maryland called a dwayo, mm-hmm. which we're going to have to also put a pin in, mm-hmm. and it looks more like a dogman stereotype. Okay. So
I will leave that is all up to you, the cryptids.
Yeah.
I know little.
Okay.
I'm coming to all of this through a different avenue, a different door open for me to be here and talk. The cryptid talk is somewhat new to me.
It just doesn't look like a wild man. They also tried to tie it back, as so many do, to local indigenous tribe legends. They say that you can look at the legends of the indigenous Piscataway. I think I did that correctly.
Piscataway, I think.
Piscataway. I'm sorry, you're right. Now that you say that, I've heard that correctly. Yeah. The Piscataway spoke of something called Okie. And the Enoch Pratt librarian, God bless her, describes it as a shape-shifting monster spirit that was both revered and feared, a hairy, powerful entity. They claim the Okie bears a striking resemblance to modern descriptions of Bigfoot. So I had to go down that rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
Well,
again,
you really should. I don't see how you don't.
Yeah, I found nothing that ties poor Okie to Bigfoot. Okie apparently is not well understood at all and has no physical description because the Piscataway have lost many of their traditions. The ones that remain don't speak of their traditions outside of the group. They are not. While I believe they are a federally recognized tribe, they have been so hopelessly interbred, married, assimilated is I believe the word I'm looking for. They've been so hopelessly assimilated into culture that they don't really have a living tradition.
It's not documented, so you just throw up your hands.
So for a variety of these reasons, the academic understanding of Okie is next to nil. They may, I would love if somebody from the Piscataway called us up, emailed us and said, "No, I know all about Okie," and you're wrong. But they have not shared that with the academics. When I went to look at online at the academic sites and try to pull up that, and
if the academics don't know
even
it,
pulling through
as humans don't know.
I know. And that's not.
Is that what you're saying?
No, but what I'm saying is I'm not sure where the Pratt Library got a hold of this idea that the two are somehow related. It doesn't look like there's enough information at all to relate the two.
Well, whatever they had enough to say. To quote a shape-shifting monstrous spirit, wherever they got that, I don't know.
But is that Bigfoot? What is
Bigfoot
at that point?
Who knows? Well, okay. I think at this point it's easy to. I think it's obvious to say that the indigenous tribes, and maybe the Piscataway doesn't have anything documented or there's no oral tradition, but there are plenty of indigenous that do. I mean, if you go, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
eventually,
you go to the far coast on the west. Yeah. You've got tribes that would have potlatches with these creatures. So, which is interesting. I know you have opinions on that.
I have opinions, and I've got
these Indians just love to sit around and tell stories to each other. They do blow peace pipe smoke up.
They
their
also
butts.
They don't tell the same stories the same way that.
That doesn't mean that they're not.
The Bigfoot
researchers
impose on them.
Well, but that doesn't mean Well, if you're trying to fit a narrative, you can shove a lot in, but it doesn't make it incorrect either.
No, but when you try to match the original story up with the modern story of Bigfoot, they don't always match neatly.
I would say this
is
imprecise all over the place.
I love it. That's what makes for good podcasting. Well,
it's unknown, John.
It's unknown.
Let's let it be unknown.
I am happy to have those conversations. We can argue those things out later in future episodes, because that'll make for compelling conversation.
Yeah. Well, so obviously from hearing me, I think you can pretty safely say I think there's a lot there. I think these you know me. I generally don't feel the need to take anything off the table. Any story, and I really don't care. I don't care if the story is, here comes Sasquatch. He was walking down the road. He was indeed on stilts. Yeah. He had huge balls.
Oh.
And he was wearing a fuzzy fedora. It was yellow. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. That's great. That's fine. You can tell your story. I can still
those stories
leave it on the table and see, does it fit anything else?
Those stories do exist, and I have not yet procured my copies of the volumes 1 and 2 of Where the Footprints End, but they get into weird Bigfoot like nobody's business.
Yeah.
They dig up those stories that are you made that up on the fly. I really won't be shocked if we find one like that in there.
Well,
they are that bizarre.
Yeah.
And you know, some of the earlier in this conversation we talked about, well, are they paws and pelts? Are they supernatural? Are they somehow alien pets? Those are sort of the big 3 categories. But there are things that between those on a spectrum, and then there are things at further ends of those spectrums that are just crazy.
I think
crazy.
You know, the bigger your data set, the better it is. You know, and I know that in my mind, at least as far as I have gotten, you know, and taking the wave tops of everything that I've sampled across anything that comes my way, I'll onboard it, and it sort of helps to level my understanding. And, you know, it to me, people are seeing things. It's strange. It's unknown. I think there are extremely strange things happening that we still don't understand. And I'm not willing to take it off the table. I'm not saying I know what it is. I think a lot of explanations sound interesting because they match along with other theories. Right.
One of the things I like about the Sykesville Monster story is it sounds outrageous at first to suggest that Bigfoot exists in central Maryland, even back in the 70s. But it's the stories as they are told, even Lon's with the conspiratorial overtones. This is not that weird.
No, it's not.
It's
His
really
story
not.
is like run of the mill. It's like that's all that happened.
It's very believable in terms of something could be tromping around in the woods.
Well, I mean, the mere suggestion that the Air Force did indeed say Sasquatch in, you know, like government printed, you know, materials suggests that there is an awareness. It's more than just people running around telling stories and trying to sell newspapers. There's something there. Yes, newspapers get sold. Yes, books get sold. Websites get started.
And more power to them.
And more, well, how else is the word going to get out there?
Yep.
You know, unfortunately, we live in a society where resource gathering is still part of life. So anyway, interesting conversation, John. I enjoyed this one. I didn't get a chance to tell you about the other interesting things that happened in Sykesville concerning Sasquatch, like at Piney Run Park, the tree structure that's there. Maybe we can segue in at some other time.
We can either come back.
Yeah, maybe we come back to it. Or if there's updates.
We can do an update.
Yeah, we do a quick update.
Or we could at some point we could do what all the big podcasters do, which is have exclusive content, and you could just
go on site,
tell all the stories. You could record it on your own later, and it'd be great.
All right, it'll be great. Well, this is going to be great.
But that's the Sykesville Monster story, at least as I best understand it.
Thank you, John.
Today.
I appreciate you putting all this information together. You tell a great story, and you tell a great Sasquatch story too.
I love me some cryptid.
With big balls.
If Lon insists.
If Lon insists. Well, I mean, obviously it was something you couldn't miss. All right, where are we going next?
Let's see. Next from this, don't we do Ouija board?
We do.
Ouija board.
Let's do Ouija board next.
Okay.
That sounds like a good plan. All right. That wraps it up for us. Until next time, this is Into the Unknown with Mike and John. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.